Hello everyone and welcome to the first in what's going to be a series of battle reports pitching franchises against each other as we combine Marvel Universe, a Dead Game by Night models, and DC Universe, their ongoing DC themed miniature game, together against one another because they both have the same systems. We'll take a proper look in a second at the teams, but just to be clear, this is like how an example Marvel Universe card looks, this is how a DC Universe card looks. They use the exact same system. And for clarity, we will be using the most recent hardback for the DC Universe. Anything that isn't covered in there that's like one of the old rules on a Marvel card, it'll be out of this at the back of the book. There's a reference for somewhere for all the various traits that might not have carried over into DC, if indeed there is a case. So, we have done DC miniature game battle reports on the channel, few and far between because it's a niche game. But this is hopefully going to just be a fun variant on that. Two competing franchises, both using the same battle system. The Marvel stuff was aimed at lower power costs, so in general their people are cheaper, so I think they're always going to have the numbers advantage. But this is 50 power level of combined Marvel versus combined DC. And yes, I do know that there is some player made or player updated cards for Marvel to make them more on par with DC. In fact, we've actually been playing those over on my gaming channel because you can actually play this digitally via Tabletop Simulator. So if you want to go over to Flix Gaming stuff, we've actually been playing a couple of three-way matches. Doesn't exactly work with 3 players, but hey, we did it and we tried it. We're actually going to be starting our 3rd match relatively soon. But for now, let's take a look at who's fighting today. So as mentioned, the DC Universe heroes on average are a lot higher power costs. So 50 power level here of just the Justice League are Superman, Wonder Woman, Batman and the Flash. Although just to point out, we're not adhering to usual like who can fight alongside whom, other than what franchise they are from. So as long as they're from DC, they can be on this side. As long as they're on Marvel, they can be on the other. So if Darkseid somehow wanted to team up with Superman, if you could fit that into 50 power level, I think you could if you're willing to use 3 minis. That is possible, as long as they're the same franchise, so we're ignoring that particular rule of team composition. But that's it, Justice League going up against mostly Avengers. I said mostly Avengers, it's actually half and half Avengers and Guardians of the Galaxy. So 50 power level of our Marvel team this time is Drax, we have Rocket Raccoon, we have Nova Prime, we have Iron Man, Captain America and the Mighty Thor. So they've got 2 additional models compared to the 4 count on the DC side, but in general they're all a little bit lower. I think the most expensive one here is Thor at like 12 power level, and that's roughly on par with, well, Batman's 10 I think and the Flash is 11, just for comparison's sake. So I'm going to set up the board and go over how we're playing the mission. We're basically just doing the same variation as we've been playing digitally, but if you haven't seen that, I'll go over it in a second. So both teams are set up 6 inches in from their edges. The Marvel team is set up as you see it with the power dice behind them to show how much power they have prior to either defending or starting their turn. The DC team is as you see them, and rather than pulling the tokens out of a bag, we're going to adopt the Batman 3rd edition way of deciding who goes first each battle round just because it's quicker. Both teams roll off, winner goes first. In the event of a draw, the person who didn't go first last time goes first that time. Unless it's battle round 1, in which case you just keep rolling off until somebody wins. And the mission, there are 3 places of power on the field. You score 1 victory point if you hold one with majority. You get a victory point if you have majority of the points, so if you have 2 to 1 or 1 to none, etc. And you also get 1 victory point for each casualty you inflict upon the enemy. So with that, let's jump into battle round 1 with Marvel going first. So to get the game started, it was Drax the Destroyer who activated. He spent 2 power to move his full movement of 9 inches, which is relatively fast for a 2-move person. He has moved there, he is heading towards that place of power over there, and because he has no range, he is banking 5 power for defensive purposes. Batman was the first to activate for DC, and he spent 2 power to use his once per game, so already is gone, Batclaw to displace 12, which is much higher than his base movement because he's pretty slow, because he's old man Batman in a bodysuit of metal. But that was enough to get him to the point where you can see him. Then he spent a total of 4 power on a overloaded grenade launcher, kryptonite grenade launcher, so it's the damage type you can't defend against. And he smacked Drax with the grenade for 3 damage. There was no one within a blast radius to be affected. But 3 damage to Drax, and he is banking 2 power. So as we cover the next activation, just a clarifying point. The grenade did 3 damage to Drax, not 2, because it critted. Totally forgot to mention that it was a crit. Anyway, Nova activated and he can fly, and he can fly 15 inches. So he flew over the car, right into base to base with Batman, and then tried to, I think it's called blast off, punch him twice, basically, for 2 power each. Batman spent 1 to boost his physical defense. 1 got through though, for 2 damage. The other one did not pierce his defenses. It would have been a DC activation next, however, because of the difference in model numbers, a pass was used, so Captain America activated. Move forwards, he had to spend 2 to move up to 7, but he roughly moved like 6, I think, because he moved slightly to the side. Then he spent 1 power on his once per game Avengers Assemble, where every Avenger within 8 inches gets moved 4 towards him. So basically that's giving Iron Man and Thor a free 4 inches of movement to put them in better positions. Then nothing else he could do because he can only move once, so he banked 5 power. So next, the second and also last pass for DC was used. So Iron Man activated, spent 3 power to fly 14 from roughly there. Didn't fly the full 14, I don't think, but he's right there in front of this place of power. Then he spent 3 on micro missiles, which are energy based, shot them at the Flash. The Flash didn't buff his defense and probably regrets it because it got through for 2 damage. Iron Man banked 1 power after his turn ended. Wonder Woman activated and first did her once per turn super jump instead of a normal move action to get her 12 inches so she could stomp down in front of Nova. Then she did, because she had an odd number of power left, she did a overloaded Sword of Athena, I think it was, for like 5 power, leaving her with 1. The sword got through because Nova had nothing to buff his defense. He took 3 damage from it, which is a pretty good hit, and then that is it. So now it's over to either Thor or Rocket Raccoon. So Rocket Raccoon did indeed activate, and he is agile, so he gets to do 2 movements, so all he did was spend 4 power in total to move twice. Just scurry along, scuttle along, scurry. To where you can see him there, he is just within the 2 inches zone of control of that place of power, so he's helping Iron Man contain it, and he banked 3 power. So now it's either Superman or the Flash for DC. So the Flash activated and first spent 1 power to move a massive 10 inches, because he's a speedster and fast. He moved into base to base with Iron Man here. He did want to hit him with something harder, however this Iron Man, he has a once per game that only costs 1, where if he's hit by a electrical element attack, he can absorb it for a bunch of extra power, which most of the Flash's attacks are because they're kinetic, lightning, etc. So he couldn't do that, so he just did an overloaded charge instead. Did only 2 damage to Iron Man, who actually, he has ridiculously low physical defense, for the record. He got pushed back 2 inches, but still obviously within range of claiming that. So the Flash made use of also being agile, so he could do a second move action, spent another 1 power to move 10 inches, where you can see him, and he has banked 4 power. So now it's over to Thor to end for Marvel, and then it'll be Superman for DC. So Thor activated and spent 3 to fly forwards right onto the place of power in the middle of the map. Then he spent a total of 5 power for Midgard, which is a charge attack basically, so you don't have to be in base to base. The Flash spent 1 power to buff his defense against physical, but it didn't matter. It got through and it did an astonishing 4 damage. Thor is very dangerous. 4 damage plus it pushes him back 1d8, but he only got 1, so Flash got pushed back 1, and he ended his turn banking 1 power. So now the other big man himself, Superman, is the last to go for Battle Round 1. So Superman activated and did end up using all his power. He spent 3 to fly into base to base with Thor, then he did an overloaded throw attempt. Thor spent his 1 power to buff his physical defense to try and resist it, and he succeeded, which was a waste of a lot of power. So failing that, Superman had 3 power left, not much else he could do, or literally nothing else. So he did his once per game freeze breath, or frost breath, whatever it's called, on Thor, which did get through. Thor failed his agility roll, so he took the full 2 damage, and he was pushed back, well, it was pushed back 2 inches, he should technically be there, but the metal miniature is kind of dangerously tipping when he's on there, so he's back there. Either way, he is still out of 2 inches of the place of power, took 2 damage, and that takes us to the scoring phase for Battle Round 1. So at the end of Battle Round 1, Marvel is holding this place of power, DC is holding the middle place of power, and DC has majority at this place of power. So that is 2 plus 1 for Marvel, but then also DC has majority for an extra 1. So as we go into Battle Round 2, it is 3 playing 1, and once we get all the power and whatnot back, we'll jump straight in. So Battle Round 2 got started with the DC getting priority, and so the Flash activated. He moved for 1 power, 10 inches, into base to base with Thor, then did an overloaded super mass critical punch, his once per game super ultra punch. It sent Thor 2 inches back from where he's supposed to be standing. Remember, he was standing there, but he's meant to be there, so he got pushed to here. Took in a massive 4 damage, which put him in his pale zone. And then, because he's agile and can do another move, he spent 1 power to move back to securing the middle place of power, and banked 1 power so that he isn't suffering from too tired. With that, over to DC. Marvel, I mean, sorry. Thor activated and he moved up, I think, for 1 power, or maybe 2, to where you can see him, and then he overloaded his once per game Bring the Thunder, which is a big lightning attack. It's 20 inches he can use it on. But he opted to shoot it at the Flash because the Flash is weak. He also couldn't spend the 1 power he's banking because then he'd lose 1 defense, so really he'd only be gaining 1 defense, but other people might attack him this turn, so he opted to sit on it. But he got hit by it and took a massive 4 damage. Thor, as a result, has banked 1 power, and he's obviously, well, he's contesting the middle place of power, but they still have majority. The Flash is in his pale zone well and truly now, so he'll also be doing a knockout check at the end of the turn. Superman activated and spent 1 power to get started to move right next to Thor, did an overloaded throw attempt and this time succeeded in grabbing him. He chucked Thor at Iron Man, I was going to say Captain America. So Thor takes 5 damage from the throw because Superman's so powerful and is knocked down automatically. He did try and buff his physical defense with his last power, but it didn't make a difference. Captain America failed his agility roll, took 2 damage and is also knocked down because he just got an Asgardian to the face. Then Superman tried to follow it up by doing an overloaded heat vision on Thor, but that did not pierce his defenses. So all said and done, he's banking 2 power, but he did a lot of damage there. Thor is very close to his, well, blue zone. We'll just use the nomenclature for DC because that's what we're used to on the channel, but on the Marvel cards it's red zone. But he's very, very close to his blue/red zone. Captain America activated, spent 2 to move 7, I think it was, to where you can see him, and then he overloaded a shield throw, but overloaded it to get Ricochet, which is basically the same as in Crisis Protocol. He did it on the Flash, but rolled poorly, so no damage. All said and done, he's just banking 1 power, but he is contesting the middle now as well, which might be relevant towards the end of the turn. Wonder Woman activated from where she was and opted to pick on Nova. She overloaded a throw attempt and grabbed him. She can throw 10 inches. She chucked him into this car here, and he automatically takes strength -1, so he took 4 damage. He did try and buff his physical defense because he also has resistance 1 against physical, but it was not enough. She rolled well on her attacks. She doesn't want to move, so she's banking a massive 5 power, but she is holding a place of power with Batman. So now, back over to Marvel. Iron Man activated next, and he flew over from where he was, right next to the Flash, to try and shoot him in the back. He is a bit low on power in general, so he couldn't do one of his bigger hits, so he just did a repulsor blast on the Flash, who again doesn't want to spend that last power he's sitting on because he'll get too tired, debuffed. He took 2 damage from the repulsor blast, and then Tony banked 1 power. So now it's over to Batman to end the turn for the DC side, unless he opts to use their passes. So Batman did use one of the 2 stuns passes available to DC, so it was Marvel's turn. So Nova activated. He only moved forward 1, and then he spent 6, I think, on overloading his once per game. It's a supernova attack or something. What is it called? Supermassive pulsar. It doesn't really do much damage. Its max damage is 2. However, it's a massive, like 5 or 6 inch explosion. Presumably he isn't affected by his own attack, but either way, targeted Batman because his energy defense was worse, did the 2 damage, and Wonder Woman failed her agility roll and also took 2 damage, and that left him with no power. So again, it's either over to Batman or he can pass again. So Batman did indeed make use of the other pass available to DC, so it came down to either Drax the Destroyer or Rocket Raccoon activating, and Rocket was the one to activate. He spent a total of 1 power to move closer to the place of power there, and that's literally it, because that's all he's doing to hold it. Drax wants to force Batman to go first, and that is going to happen now because there is no more passes available. So Batman didn't have much choice. He opted to stay still. He overloaded his Kryptonite Grenade Launcher, which you can only fire once per turn, shot it at Drax again, it hit him for 2 damage, and damage type it can't be defended against or have your defense buffed against. He's banking 4 power, and that takes us to Drax to end off Battle Round 2. So Drax didn't have much luck with his turn. He had to spend 2 to get into base to base with Wonder Woman and Batman. Then he did just 2 dual knife attacks on Batman, and one of which was overloaded. Batman buffed his physical defense, which put him at 18, so it's quite hard to beat, and he didn't. Drax failed to do any damage, so that takes us to the cleanup and scoring for the second battle round. So as we get ready to go into battle round 3, some knockout checks had to be done, and the Flash succumbed to his wounds and has been knocked out. That also means his regeneration doesn't kick in, and that also means that there's only 1 DC person in the middle here, which does make a difference. Marvel holds this one, Marvel holds this one because of Iron Man and Captain America, DC holds this one. So 2 plays 1 and then plus an extra 1 for Marvel having the majority of the places of power, which actually makes it entirely even at 4 victory points each. Thor is still knocked down, but he did not succumb to his wounds, so he's conscious, and Nova is still conscious as well. DC going first though, as we go into battle round 3. So Superman activated to get Battle Round 3 started, and he had a very embarrassing showing. He has a little bit in general, honestly. So he flew over here to pick on poor Rocket Raccoon, just landed behind him and then did his once per game super punch, overloaded it. Rocket spent 1 power to defend against physical attacks, and he actually succeeded. The roll was bad on 3, it was 551, which would have been a crit as well. 551, not enough to get through Rocket's boosted physical defense. I guess it's better to say he dodged it rather than he took it to the face, but still. That is one tough Raccoon. He did not care, but Superman just tried to punch him in the back of the skull. He's very low, but Rocket Raccoon has like less than 10 HP max, and that would have done 5, so it would have hurt him really bad. Superman banked 1 power, but wasn't able to kill him. So Tony Stark activated first for Marvel, and he decided to pick on the unconscious Flash. First of all, he overloaded a repulsor blast for +1 damage rather than the extra dice, because his defense is so low when he's unconscious anyway. That got through. Then, just to guarantee the kill, he overloaded it again on another repulsor blast, this time adding the extra die. All said and done, Flash took 4 damage. Actually, I think it was 5, because I think the first one did 3, and then the other one did 2. Either way, though, the Flash is dead, and that is a victory point to Marvel. Wonder Woman activated next, and first of all she tried to grab Drax to throw him. He spent 1 power to buff his physical defense, and the throw attempt, or the grab attempt, failed. So then she overloaded a lethal blow on him, and it got through for 3 damage. Then she banked 1 power. So, low on numbers, so it's over to Marvel to pick from mostly everybody except Iron Man. Rocket activated next, and he spent 1 to move away from Superman, then used his once per game heavy plasma gun, which can't be overloaded, so you're only getting the 2 dice. Superman spent the 1 power he was sitting on to buff his energy defense, and as a result the damage did not get through, so Rocket wasn't able to do it. They're both still contesting, so right now nobody is claiming that place of power. So rather than use a pass, Batman did activate. He did his once per game power strike, overloaded it onto Drax. It did an amazing 4 damage and 2 stun, so he lost 2 power off of that, which did put him in his his blue zone / red zone. He passed his willpower roll to stay awake though. Then Batman followed up with an overloaded just punch with his reinforced gloves for an additional 2 damage. Drax is 3 away from dying now. So now Nova, Captain America, and Thor all just get to do whatever they want. Oh, sorry, and Drax as well, because he did not fall unconscious, so although he's sitting on 4 power only, he does still get an activation. So 2 of those 4 activations to cover. Captain America activated, he moved up just to consolidate into the centre. He did a shield bounce over at Wonder Woman, smacked her in the back of the head for 3 damage. Drax stayed where he was, did an overloaded dual blade attack on Batman, and it did not get through his physical defense. So now just Nova and Thor. So the final 2 activations for Marvel and for Battle Round 3. Thor spent a power to stand up because he was still knocked down. Then he flew over here. I love the idea of him just slamming down in front of Superman and saying, "We are not finished." He did, however, then try and do an overloaded throw, or grab and throw, and failed, so they're just locked in combat once again while Rocket watches from over there. Then Nova activated. He flew over behind Batman and Wonder Woman. He tried to punch Batman twice. 1 got through for 2 damage. And with that, we're into the cleanup and scoring for Battle Round 3. So as you might be able to see, some people have fallen unconscious during the recovery and checking phase at the end of the turn. Drax gave in to his wounds and has fallen unconscious, so has Batman. And Thor managed to stay standing, so did Nova. So that one is a draw. No one's capping it, because Wonder Woman versus Nova. This one is held by Marvel. This one is held by Marvel. So that's 2, plus another 1 for having majority, plus another 1 because they took out the Flash, giving them a 4-point swing this turn, putting them way out in front. So if this lead continues, there'll be no point continuing after Battle Round 4, but a lot of them are wounded. Drax is very close to death, Nova isn't a million miles away, and Rocket Raccoon only has 10 HP. So we'll see what happens as we go into Battle Round 4. So to get what could very well be the final battle round started, Thor activated. He tried to grab and throw Superman and failed, so then he did a For Asgard, which is a mystic attack, overloaded that, and it has push 2, so he pushed Superman back and also did 3 damage to him. That's the first damage Superman's taken though, so it's not likely he's going down, but it did move him away from the point. So now it is over to DC. Wonder Woman activated and tried to hit Drax on the ground once and failed miserably despite him being unconscious. The second time, however, succeeded with a crit, so Drax has unfortunately been murderized. Only left her with 1 power, so she has nothing else to do, so she's just going to stay where she is. But that's a victory point for Drax going down. Nova activated, stayed where he was and did 2 overloaded punches on the unconscious Batman. Both got through for 2 damage each, but Batman is still alive. He still has a chance of getting a turn, assuming he can pass his willpower to wake up, but there is also Superman who could potentially take a turn as we move on to DCs. So Superman activated, he spent 1 to move back into base to base with Thor. He tried to grab Thor and succeeded by overloading it. Thor had no power left to do anything. He chucked Thor into the truck here for 5 damage, followed that up with an overloaded heat vision for 2 damage, and that was enough to take down the God of Thunder. He has fallen for 1 victory point, and now he is contesting that there with Rocket. Iron Man activated next, and from where he was standing he overloaded his once per game Unibeam, which is his big chest laser. He shot it at Wonder Woman, but it has pierced 3, so it also pierced through and hit Batman. Both of them got hit by it, but Batman's unconscious, so there wasn't much chance of him not. Wonder Woman did buffer energy defense, but it wasn't enough, so they both took 4 damage. So Batman would have been doing a check for going into his blue zone if he wasn't already knocked out. Speaking of which, we're going to see now if he wakes up and gets an activation. If he doesn't, then Rocket and Captain America just get to do whatever they want. So Batman did manage to regain consciousness at -1 power and then -1 power again to stand up. So he did 2 overloaded reinforced glove attacks on Nova. The first one got through for just the base 2 damage. Oh, he also buffed his defense. But there were 2 very good rolls. The second one actually got a crit for 3 damage. Nova passed his stamina roll, however, so he is not dropping unconscious. So now Rocket and Captain America, they get their turn. Turns. So the final 2 activations for what could be the last battle round have been done. Rocket stayed where he was, did his once per game RPG, shot a rocket at Superman, and it didn't get through his defenses. Captain America moved in to contest this point. He did a... what is it called? He's got a kick of some type. He overloaded that and he did a shield strike. His attacks were only 1 damage each. 3 damage got done in total because 1 was a crit, but that leaves Batman surviving on 1 HP, so he is staying conscious, and that matters as we go into the scoring for Battle Round 4. Did I just call it Battle Round 3 prior to that? It was Battle Round 4 if I said 3. So then in Battle Round 4, everyone stayed conscious, which is actually kind of unbelievable. Obviously, Drax and Thor went down this turn for 2 victory points versus the Flash going down in the previous turn. In terms of holdings though, Marvel's holding this one for 1, this one is contested, and this one is contested. So Marvel scored 1 point for that, but they also have the majority of controlled points, so they get another 1 for that. And looking ahead, Batman's on 1 HP. If Nova doesn't get him, Captain America will. That would just leave Wonder Woman and Superman. Superman's not in much danger of getting downed by Rocket. Even if he takes Rocket out and then holds that point, that's a 2 swing versus 1, 2, 3 for Batman going down, plus another 1 for majority. So I think it's safe to say that Marvel is taking this. So I think we're going to call it here, but we'll be back with some final thoughts in a second once we make sure that's what we're doing. Yeah, so just looking at the points, currently as things stand, Marvel have 10, DC have 6, so there's already a swing of 4 points in Marvel's favour. If Batman goes down, that becomes 5 swing. They're going to have majority again, which is an automatic +1 on whatever they're going to get, which is probably going to be 2. Wonder Woman doesn't have the strength left. She's lucky she stayed conscious, but she's close to going down to her blue zone, and if she went down it would be instant over anyway. So I think it's fair to say that Marvel took this one, this time, with some heavy losses. Quite a surprise, but given that they don't have many like high attack, high HP characters, I think the thing that suffered, or the DC suffered from in this one, is just that if you take someone with as many points as Superman, and he's what, 18? Something like, yeah, he's 18 out of the 50. He only had 1 turn, well I guess 2 technically when he killed Thor, but out of those 4 turns he had a 50% success rate of doing anything. He had 2 turns where I think he did literally nothing, or maybe 3 damage. And when you're paying 18 threat, or whatever you want to call it, 18 power levels for a character, they can't be having a success rate of 50%. Both of his, well, his Frost Breath isn't meant for doing a bunch of damage, but his Super Punch did nothing. So when you look at someone as strong as Superman, if they're not performing and your team's only got 4 miniatures versus 6 who are kind of okay, you start to suffer. He held his ground against Thor and took him out, which was a fun fight to see. But yeah, he didn't perform. If Superman performed a little bit better, he failed 2 grabs, Wonder Woman failed 1, maybe 2. If all those grabs had been successful, they'd be throwing out 5 damage here, 4 damage there, and that would quickly take down Marvel. But they've got okay defense, especially if they're willing to pay to buff. So this was a little bit of a fun experiment. Instead of just doing another DC miniature game battle report, mixing in the Marvel stuff, which is again the exact same system, not necessarily balanced in the same way, but same system. And there will be more in the future as well, more interesting odd matchups. Maybe next time try and get more than 4 miniatures on the DC side to see how it balances out. But let me know what you think, and hopefully going forwards we'll see some more. Thank you very much for watching this video. I sincerely hope you enjoyed it. Please do remember to show your support. Stay indoors, stay safe at the moment, and see you next time. Ta for now.